I just want to say this is the fastest I've ever done my makeup. I did my makeup in like 8 minutes. That's the fastest I've ever. I know. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new video. Editing Anya here. As you can see, this video is very much out of focus, unfortunately, but there's nothing I can do about it at this point. But luckily, this video, you can just kind of treat it like a podcast. You don't actually have to watch it. You can just listen to it. So we're just going to roll with it being out of focus. Yeah. Sorry. Well, as you can see, I have a special guest here today. This is my dad, and his name is Mark. And we wanted to do, well, I wanted to do a video, and you agreed to it. Since I get a lot of comments from young cosplayers asking, my parents, I'm really scared to approach my parents about wanting to be a cosplayer. They're very strict. I thought it'd be interesting to have a parent's point of view of being a cosplay parent. And we can talk about some of the fears that your parents might have and ways that you can kind of present cosplay to them in like a way that will make them hopefully accept it. So that's what we're going to do, a bit of an interview. There won't be a whole lot of visuals to this video. So feel free to put it on the background, grab a snack, do some photo editing, just have us in the background. We're going to do this podcast style, I think. So that's the plan for today. So I just want to ask, like, first of all, what has your experience being a cosplay parent been like?
This all started with you when you were really quite young, and I think it's been great. Um, so your very first cosplay was Princess Peach.
Mm-hmm.
There was a small convention here in Victoria, and as a family, we kind of all contributed to the costume and getting you there, and I think you had a fantastic time. You were all by yourself, and we were really impressed and that you went in there and did that. And I think the entire experience for me has been one of supporting a creative endeavor. I've always had this view that as long as Anya, you are making things, whatever that is, that's good. And so we wanted to facilitate that in any way we could. The very first cosplay you did and the convention, I mean, it was quite small. There wasn't a lot of money involved. I mean, it was just a simple thing to do, and it made you so happy. So, um, and I've always kind of viewed it on par with if your kid is involved in a sports team or in theater or some, extracurricular thing in school.
Yeah.
This is no different, right? It's a bunch of time and energy that goes into creating the costumes and then going to the convention and experiencing all of that. It's the same. You weren't a sporty kid, so we weren't doing softball or soccer or any of those things, but we were doing cosplay. And it was a way for us as a family to go and do something together that you were into.
That's excellent. That's a very good answer. That is such a fantastic view to have of it, having it like as an extracurricular, because it really is kind of the ultimate hobby, right? Like it involves photography and acting and sewing, and if you do those things on their own, people kind of respect it more, right? Like if you're in home ec and you're doing sewing, or if you're in drama club and you're doing acting, or if you're doing maybe like modeling, people are like, oh yeah, that's an extracurricular, that's great. But when you kind of amalgamate that into cosplay, people don't take it as seriously.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would frame it as seriousness. I think certainly when you were getting into it, cosplay was not well understood
Mm-hmm.
by the public at large. And certainly it took your mom and I some time to kind of get a grasp of what was going on. But it takes all of the effort
Mm-hmm.
that any other extracurricular activity takes, right? There's a dedication required, a determination. You have to make these things, you have to gather the resources together to create them, and all the work that goes into it. I mean, it's not insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, I mean, when we started, it was all very much manga focused,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, it was all kind of grew out of Japanese manga, Japanese cosplay, all of these Japanese influences. The sort of North American things that you are involved in now, Stranger Things and other sorts of series that you follow, they didn't feature at that time. So everything about it was a foreign thing, right? It came from afar. As parents, we weren't totally up to speed on what this was. But I think when you see your child exhibiting passion about anything, you have to feed that, right? I mean, that's what your job is as a parent, to make it possible for your child to pursue the things that they're interested in, whatever those turn out to be. And so that's what we did.
Okay, so I asked over on Instagram because we wanted a little bit of guidance for this video. So I asked over on Instagram, what, when it comes to asking your parents to cosplay, what are you most afraid of? So the top three, by a long shot, were first of all cost. That was the biggest one that people were worried about. Them thinking that's quote unquote weird, and them thinking that's some sort of X-rated thing. So should we start with the expense?
Let's start with cost, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So what's your view on that?
Well, when you're first starting out, I mean, the cosplays are not super sophisticated. And so, I mean, you might start with materials that you've pulled out of your closet, plus some things you might have made. And so the cost of the costume is not that great. And if you have allowance or, you know, little bits of money of your own, probably doable. And if you have parents who have the resources to help you, maybe they can, you know, buy fabric and lend you a sewing machine, or, you know, whatever they can provide. I think creating the costume probably isn't the challenge, certainly at the very beginning. I mean, as you become more sophisticated and you become more ambitious in what you're trying to create for your costumes, cost can grow. But at the very beginning, I don't think you're going to spend a lot of money. I mean, maybe you disagree, but
Yeah, I think it really depends on the cosplay itself. So whenever people are starting cosplay, I always do this thing called the 5-piece rule, which is you want a cosplay that requires 5 pieces. So my example is always the Pines twins from Gravity Falls. They wear normal clothes that are thriftable. They both have 5 pieces to their outfits. And yeah, I think for when you're first starting out, you want to stick to things that are thriftable and stuff that you can use from your own closet. And as you move up, you know, the cosplays will become more and more intricate, and you kind of cross that bridge when you get to it, you know, when it comes to the cost. But for sure, I mean, getting your first wig is not insignificant, especially if you don't have a debit card, and like asking your parent to like use their debit card to get it for you. I can understand where that can be challenging. But I think I always look at it as the time over money method. So the more time you put into it, the less expensive it's going to be. So as long as you just take your time and you choose something that's simple and you be as creative as possible, I think you can sidestep the expense part of it. And then when you're like me and you become an adult, you can make your $500 Catherine of Aragon cosplay. And that's just like, that would have never happened when I first started, but it is a reality now. So you kind of work your way up. And yeah, I think that's my advice when it comes to the cost part of it.
and I think if you're worried, you know, if you don't have the money yourself, if you can't save it up, and you want, and you need to buy some piece that's a little more than you have, then, you know, I think it's a thing to talk about, you know, see what your parents are able to do to help you. And maybe they can, or maybe you just have to take more time and save up more money from, you know, if you have an allowance, just put a little bit aside. Um, but I think your time explanation is a great one. Just, you know, it takes as long as it takes to make these happen. But determination goes a long way. I mean, if you're absolutely determined to do a particular cosplay and go to a convention and enjoy it, you'll make it happen somehow.
I like that. Determination. We're coming back to Undertale with the determination. You won't get that reference,
Okay.
but you are filled with determination. If you know, you know. Okay, so I think that covers the cost part of it. What about the parents thinking that it's weird or somehow strange? I mean, you know, it is to a certain extent, but
Yeah, I think if your parents think it's strange, you have to imagine that they don't understand what it is. and and that breeds a level of fear. You know, is this a safe place for my child to be? Is this material that I want them to be involved with. I think the thing to do is don't be secretive, right? Bring your parents along, show them the shows, explain the story, let your parents, through you, understand how important this is and what you're getting out of it, right? How you perceive the story. And if you can invite them to come and watch a few episodes of the show with you, and so they, and not just one, maybe over the course of a certain amount of time, get them to see several. And you can talk to them about it and ask, they can ask you questions. I think it's like anything. You just have to help them see what it is you see in these shows that you enjoy so much. I mean, that's why we watch any kind of movie or TV shows, that it entertains us, and they need to understand why this entertains you.
Yeah, all right. I never thought about it that way. I thought it was more of a like convincing them that this is an art form and convincing them that it's like a creative endeavor, but you think that you should go to the root of it and
I think you want to demonstrate what it is that attracts you to these shows, and then by extension why you want to enjoy portraying a particular character, what it is about that character that you connect with, what it is about that character that you like, what they do that you want to emulate. And I think most, I can't speak for all parents, but again, when parents see this passion, when they see this curiosity, when they see this energy that you're exhibiting, you can't help but go along with it, right? It's not frightening anymore. You just see your child being excited about something.
so how about this is like the big one I think is them thinking that's some sort of X-rated, inappropriate endeavor because cosplay can get provocative, right? There's a provocative side to cosplay, and there are many provocative character designs out there, and so I guess for a parent that would be a big fear.
I mean, I think it sort of circles back to my last answer, which is if you involve your parents in viewing the show and showing them what it is about the show that attracts you, I think that goes a long way to alleviating this worry that there's this X-rated content, because they can see the show. Now, that said, um, a lot of, certainly, manga operates on many levels, right? And so there's the story and the characters, and then there are visual themes that appear in a lot of manga that are very adult. And probably if you're quite young, it's going right over your head. You don't see the symbolism that certain kinds of clothing carries. You don't see the connections that your parents see. And also, I think there's a lot of misinformation out in the world about what anime is, what cosplay is. And I think if you can show your parents people going to Comic Con, if there's a YouTube video and you just see people milling about in their costumes, enjoying an ice cream cone, speaking with their friends, taking pictures. This is not a sexual activity, no matter how they're dressed, right? This is a social gathering. And older kids may dress more provocatively, but if you look at younger cosplayers, they're always dressed in perfectly acceptable way, right? I mean, girls are dressed as Princess Leia, or something like that, where the thing is covering their neck, it's a long gown. I mean, that's not all cosplays are like that, but so many are, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's about showing your parents what it is you like, engaging them in it, getting them to see beyond headlines, getting them to see beyond what they might have seen on the news somewhere sometime. So it's just about educating your parents, I think, and being really clear about what it is you like about certain characters.
Yeah. So how I like to look at it is that I like to explain to people when it comes to anime and media and cosplay is that it's like any other art form. If you think of paintings or literature or movies, there's always going to be an X-rated side to that, right? And at the same time, there are like when we think of movies, there's X-rated movies, but there's also children's movies and family movies and young adult movies, and it's the same with books, and it's the same with any type of art form. And so that's why I like to present cosplay as like an art form. because that's what it is. And sure, there is like the OnlyFans, more provocative side of it, which is totally fine if you're an adult and you're consenting to doing that. I think that's totally fine. But when you're a young kid, that might be the side that your parents are seeing, and so it's important to let them know that there are, just like there are many different authors and many different artists, there are many different cosplayers, and each cosplayer has their own comfort zone and does their, there are some family friendly cosplayers, and then there are some who are not, and that either one is fine, but like it all exists. So just because you want to be a cosplayer doesn't mean that you want to, you know, do anything provocative.
Right. Totally. I completely agree. One thing though is that what you see in a show may be completely different than what your parent sees. So your parent, because they have a broader experience of things, will see messages in the way people are dressed or the way they're behaving or in some of the language they're using. Some of the things that are being said will trigger your parent to think about things that are happening in this story that may be completely over your head.
Yeah.
As a young person, you may just totally not understand any of this that's going on, and that's okay. I think it all circles back to helping your parent see what you see in the show. Right? That you see a particular character, they're very sweet, or they're rambunctious, or there's something about that character that you connect with, in the way they behave, the things they do, the way they present themselves, and that's all you're seeing in it, and for you that's enough. And just help your parent understand that all these other layers of meaning that might be in that same story, right? Like jokes, like we can all, as we get older, we hear a joke, and there are all these meanings in that joke that we never understood when we were young.
Right.
So just be aware that your parent is hearing all of these things that you may not be hearing, and that's why you have to keep helping them to see what you see. The art that you see, the art that you admire, the art that you want to emulate.
Well, that was very insightful. Thank you very much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
And was there any were there any closing thoughts you wanted to leave us with, or?
Yeah, well, so for your parents, I think I've said this a couple of times during the interview. There's an opportunity for your child to become really enthusiastic and passionate about something here. And you may not appreciate it. It may seem inconsequential to you, but focus on your child's passion. Like they're exhibiting an intense interest in something. That's what you want to support. And this is no better or worse than softball or soccer or swimming or whatever that your child loves to do. And it has there are all these technical avenues that you can go down as a cosplayer, photography, seamstress, all these things. There's all kinds of things to learn about. So it has just as much importance as any other extracurricular thing that your child would get into.
Very, very good way to end this off, I think. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today for this collaboration video. I hope that this helps some of the younger cosplayers watching who want to get into it. Feel free to share, if you've had this talk with your parents, how you kind of presented cosplay to them. I'd love to hear what other, aspects people have kind of presented.
Right, what they've found.
What they've found. So yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If you are new here and you'd like to see more videos like this, I put out new videos every Sunday, and it'd be awesome to have you here, so feel free to subscribe. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys all next time, but until then, Panda Faces, please be sure to take care. Bye! I'm not gonna touch the camera. I don't want to touch your fancy camera.